So what we have here is a food crisis and an energy crisis being created by the President of the United States and the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu. So we're going to go to the main screen here.
We turn now to the risks of a global food and hunger crisis if the Strait of Hormuz remains closed to shipments of fertilizer, oil, and natural gas.
The disruption of the Strait of Hormuz can push 45 million more people into hunger and starvation.
Meet Steve Keen, the economist who predicted the 2008 financial crash.
Okay, so I regularly participate in lectures with Steve Keen, and we regularly model real world situations to see how it works with a real economy, not fake economy based on theory, neoclassical theory, but dynamics in the real economy as its micro and macroeconomic effects affect the world, affect your nation, and affect your municipalities.
What happens if the Strait of Hormuz shuts down? Oil stops moving, fertilizer disappears, food production drops, and billions could suffer.
We think that things just magically come out of factories. The one thing I can say for Donald Trump doing this ridiculous, stupid, unnecessary, unjustified war is that he's giving us a fair taste of what global warming is going to do when that strikes. The West won't take global warming seriously until lots of white people start to die. We have to change our behavior very, very rapidly. A large part of our problem in understanding what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz comes out of the way that we've been conditioned to think about how production occurs. Even though people are not aware that this is where their mental model comes from, it comes from what economists reason about how goods and services are actually produced. And conventional economic theory talks about combining what they call total factor productivity, which we would translate as technology, the level of technology, multiplied by labor, multiplied by the number of machines. That leaves out any input from the real world. So it imagines we can produce goods and services without using anything from the natural environment, including energy. Now, when you look at how the real world actually operates, you can make nothing whatsoever unless you have inputs from the natural environment. If you simply have humans and machines and tell produce output, but we're not going to give you any energy, so the humans starve to death and the machines don't get any fuel. Fundamentally, it's the naivety of humans about how goods and services are produced that is.
Say it ain't so, Steve. Say it ain't so, but guess what? It is so. So now we're going to pivot and we're going to go to another situation because you have to understand how this guy Donald Trump and Israel are creating this problem for everyone. And this is how it goes. Let's go to the next screen. Okay, here's the Israeli Prime Minister, Netanyahu, and his office attacks Europe. As Israel and the U.S. are doing Europe's dirty work, this is how you're being manipulated, folks. And he says, as Israel and U.S. are doing Europe's dirty work by fighting for civilization against jihadist lunatics in Iran and elsewhere, the European Union exposed the moral bankruptcy by drawing a false symmetry between Israeli citizens and Hamas terrorists. And you got to wrap your head around this. So he's shaming Europe. He claims Israel and U.S. are doing the dirty work. And then he states there's a moral bankruptcy by creating and drawing a false symmetry between Israeli citizens and Hamas terrorists. I'm going to come back to the screen. Let's go to another screen first. Yeah, I've done a separate video on this before, but this is just a recap to give you an overview. So from 2018 to 2023, actually it started, earlier in the 2010s, but from 2018 to 2023, this is an AI overview. You can go through my videos. I did a separate thing on the Qatari-Israeli plan to create discord between Hamas and Palestinian organization and Hamas. It was purposely done to divide and conquer. So the Israeli government enabled and approved the transfer of hundreds of millions of dollars in Qatari cash to Gaza, delivered in suitcases to support Hamas government operations with monthly payments reaching $30 million. Israeli justified this for years as a strategic humanitarian move to maintain calm and keep Hamas as a functional yet controlled power in Gaza to create a divide from the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. So key details here. Approval and flow. Qatari money fueled civilian services, fuel purchases. Critics and some officials believe it allowed Hamas to divert its own funds towards military operations. Well, you can betcha that's a strong possibility. Now, cash flow. The money was often transported in cash with Qatari envoy Mohammed al-Imadi overseeing the transfer of funds through Israeli checkpoints. So even before the October 7, 2023 attack, some reports indicated Israeli officials requested that Qatar increase its financial and fuel purchases to Gaza. This is all to support Hamas, create a divide with the Palestinian Authority. Now, the Netanyahu policy, Benjamin Netanyahu's government was accused of attempting to keep the Palestinian national movement divided by strengthening Hamas in Gaza while weakening the Palestinian Authority. And following the October 2023 attacks, these policies were heavily criticized within Israel as a catastrophic miscalculation. But let's add to that. You go back to, it wasn't until 1947, British Palestine was sectioned off to allow for an Israeli state. Meanwhile, the Zionist Jewish movement, which is the same as this Netanyahu, there's a radical element of it. 1938-39, there was an Arab war. Israeli-Arab War. Then you had Suez Canal, 67. So each and every time, even after 1947, Israel has kept capturing land, not legally, but settling on lands illegally. And then they've reshaped the whole area because they use the excuse we need it for our security. Kind of like Donald Trump. Well, we need to do tariffs for our security. We need to bomb the Iranians. Meanwhile, just prior to 1953, under the Shah, Mohammad Moghadais in the parliament, which really got the Shah worried because now democracy was forming in Iran. They wanted to make oil state-owned. So what happened? The Americans with Britain financed a coup d'etat, put the Shah back into power. The Shah oppressed and suppressed his political rivals and the system. And guess what? Those people gave up their jeans and their scarves to join up with Khomeini in the 1979 rebellion. Blame it on Carter? You always put blame somewhere. The reality is, Americans took democracy away from Iranians back in 1953. And you're always blaming the Iranians, but look what happened with Afghanistan. Look what happened with Iraq. Look what happened with Vietnam. And now you got Trump, economic warfare against every country in the world. Let's go back to let's go to another screen here. Okay, we're going to go to Chris Norland now. Here's a guy that was born, he lived in Portland, Oregon, got married. He's in South Korea now. Does a lot of videos, but today, well, May the 12th, inflation soared in the U.S. to 3.8%, driven by gasoline prices.
It accounted for over 40% of that increase. And again, this is a read from April, so imagine how May is going to look when we go into next month when we get a read on it. I think everyone knows inflation is up. There's a chart here that really stood out. And for those of you who lived through the energy crisis of the 70s, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. A lot of people are.
So here's the deal. Now look at this chart. You know what's happening in the Middle East? We had the Strait of Hormuz. It was wide open. But all of a sudden, the Israelis decided they want to bomb Iran. Donald Trump doesn't want to get trumped on the bombing and wants to bomb and take credit. And take a look at this graph here. Inflation in the 70s. And today's pattern. Today's pattern is the green graph underneath, superimposed below the one before, from the 1970s. So the 1970s to the 2020s. You see a pattern developing? And now Trump will just say, well, we've got lots of oil. You can buy it from us. They don't have the supply to satisfy the world's demand. So you really take anything what Trump says at face value. You're committing error. And it's just unbelievable error. It's causing pain and suffering. It's been causing pain and suffering without need to have to act like that. And people are just acquiescing. Power of the people. You have to get rid of these people that are not taking care of your needs, taking care of the needs of your family, your neighbors, your communities, and the rest of the world, because there's no reason to not be in a state of harmony and coexist where everybody lives in harmony and abundance. Now let's go back to the Netanyahu screen, and this is important that you look at this. So now Benjamin Netanyahu goes on the record, says European politicians are coerced by their radical constituencies, but sanctioning Jews for living in Judea and Samaria is unacceptable. No, nobody ever said that. Why do you create violence to take land, settle on that land illegally, and then just blame it on everybody else and security? You don't try to coexist. The Orthodox Jew does it totally different. So further to that, Mr. Benjamin Netanyahu states Judea is where Jews come from. That's a construct. We're all human beings. And Israel will always protect the rights of Jews to live in the heart of our ancestral homeland. Well, we're all human beings. Our ancestral homeland is the earth. This construct of creating separation to satisfy a construct that's just made up by humans in order to control humans makes no sense. So he further states the European Union's attempts to sanction Israeli civilians is a further sign of weakness and will not succeed. So this is another construct that's being created to manipulate his people, his way of thinking, and other people. Makes no sense, folks. So let's go back to the next screen here. Okay, take it away, Steve.
Has led us to walk into this conflict without considering what's the impact of cutting off critical elements of those physical inputs to produce goods and services. The most important one being food, without something to boost the productivity of the soil over and above what the soil itself can generate without artificial fertilizer. We can support 8.5, 9 billion people with the artificial fertilizer. If the artificial fertilizer is cut off, we can support 2 billion. So we're being confronted with the physical reality of this planet when we've been living in effectively a deluded world where we think that things just magically come out of factories. The shops are filled with goods. We don't actually imagine how those goods are actually produced. This is a wake-up call to humanity to say that humanity depends upon the physical environment, and at the same time we're damaging that physical environment on an enormous scale by what we're doing with exploiting resources, generating waste, dumping that into the environment. That's what is causing global warming. Now, what Donald Trump has done, unintentionally of course, is give us an experience of what it's going to be like if the flow of those physical resources from the natural world are cut off by global warming. The only thing I can say in favour of Donald Trump is that this is the wake-up call we need to realise just how critically important it is to rely upon the natural environment for the inputs we need to produce the goods and services that maintain an advanced civilization, but also to realise that if we damage those resources, we cannot have an advanced civilization. So if I can see any real way in which this conflict is beneficial
This conflict is not beneficial whatsoever. Not whatsoever. The way the United States is acting under this Donald Trump is not acceptable. It's using force to oppress and suppress other peoples. There's other ways of doing things, and history should show you that there are other ways. And there's no need for this economic warfare by terrorists, and there's no need for this kinetic warfare, whether it's Putin, Trump, or Netanyahu. Russia can go back to where their borders are and live peacefully and harmony within their borders, and can extend peace and harmony to other people outside their borders. Same thing can be done with Israel. So all these constructs of creating pain and suffering and entitlement are just constructs by man to manipulate man. You can make the decision right now. No need for violence. Change the way things are done. You, the people, have the power. You can let go of this pain and suffering, because pain and suffering is a choice. You can have harmony, benevolence, which is through empathy and sympathy to create abundance for everyone. And this is where we need to go. But you have that choice. You need to make that choice. Nobody's going to do it for you. Starts by being kind to yourself. Just be kind to yourself first. Let that radiate outwards to your neighbors, your community, and thereafter. So, love and peace to everyone. Take care. This is a wake-up call. This pain and suffering, you can stop right now. There's no need for it. Love and peace to everyone. Take care. Questions, comments, throw in the comments section. Just use deference and discernment. Deference, a certain decorum in how you act, and discernment, understand what you're putting into words and how it affects others, and think of how it might affect you as well. Take care. Love and peace to everyone. Ciao. Test 1, 2, 3. How do you read 1, 2, 3? Check 1, 2, 3. This is a live test by Michael J. Stop recording. Okay, just doing a bit of recording. So, Jack and Jill went up the hill, came down the other side. What did Jack do to Jill at the top of the hill? And what did Jill do to Jack at the bottom of the hill? That's the question. I expect answers. What are you going to say? Say what? Stop the recording.